episode of Jack Ramsays, Danny Ring, joined by Deuce Mason. Deuce and Mo podcast covers the Sacramento Kings. I wanted to bring Deuce on, one, because he's good at what he does. Two, the Kings are in a weird spot, much like the Portland Trailblazers, in that nobody knows who the hell they are, what the hell they're doing, and nobody really knows if they know what they're doing. So, Deuce, what's going on, man?
Dude, I'm just ready. Basketball feels like it's already back to me because I'm watching preseason games. I'm watching Scoot versus Victor. It just feels like it's already back, but we're still a little ways away. We get Kings Blazers in a preseason game. We get it opening night. I'm ready, man.
Listen, I went and watched the Portland Junior Blazers play the second-tier Israeli team. You want to tell me that basketball's back? I was jacked for it. I watched Shaedon Sharpe go absolutely nuts against probably a team a step above a summer league, but below a preseason team. Like, it's in a weird space, and I love every bit of it.
Well, I just love that they did that because you talk about trying to build his confidence after what happened with Summer League. Like, that was just a tremendous opportunity for him in that last game. So, yeah, build his confidence and understand, like, he's still a young player. It's going to take him time, but those are the things smart organizations will do, is like put your guys in a position to build some confidence in, a preseason.
Well, it's a perfect transition. It's almost like you do this for a living. Putting young guys in successful positions. Keegan Murray. Listen, when the Blazers had their draft build up, Keegan Murray was number one on my board. That's the guy that I wanted. I know the college numbers, this, that, and the other, but I always felt like he does a lot more even than what he did at Iowa. He was incredibly productive on every level, and some of the numbers were, well, he does too much in transition. I was like, and that's a problem. He settles for too many open jumpers, and I'm like, but he makes them, right? Like, is this there, like, the knocks on him were like, you're trying to find knocks at this point, and that's now, as we're getting into Campus Sacramento, it looks like they're going to have a lot of trouble keeping him out of the starting lineup.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. Like, the first preseason game, they started KZ Okpala. I think they might go that direction again in the preseason. And I don't know, maybe Keegan doesn't start right away. Maybe they're going, hey, let's set a defensive tone. We've been Portland, Sacramento, two of the worst defensive teams, I feel like, in the last 15 years in the NBA. So they're trying to set some sort of defensive presence, and KZ can defend multiple positions. But we saw the first preseason game with Keegan. He comes off the bench, and he has such a great feel for the game, especially as a rookie, right? A lot of times the game moves faster for rookies. It's kind of a shock, the physicality, the speed of the game. He doesn't get sped up. He's very even-keeled. He obviously can knock down the jumper, but he showed off his passing ability in that first preseason game against the Lakers. I'm like, wait, he literally is throwing a lob to Richaun Holmes right now? And he's just got the personality that you go, oh, this guy might be a little different, right? It's not flashy. It's not sexy all the time. I've heard this before. You're not going to see him necessarily like on SportsCenter top 10 dunking on someone's head, but he's going to make the right basketball decision more times than not. And I think I'm really high on Keegan Murray.
Listen, I'm right there with you. And while they're only a couple picks apart, the readiness factor between a guy like Keegan and Shaedon Sharpe, I think that kind of shows you where things are, and that's the difference between a guy who played a couple years in college and became the featured part of an offense and was the leading scorer in the country versus a guy who hasn't played since EYBL basketball in high school. Yeah. So that's kind of the trade-off. But I say all this to use Keegan to kind of preface everything, because the Kings have shiny, nice, fun things, and it's been a while since you guys have had shiny, nice, fun things. You pair him with Sabonis and Fox, obviously a trade for Kevin Huerter. You get Holmes back. It's a roster that it looks better and more balanced. But this is the question that I've gotten from national writers and national radio folks everywhere. What the hell? What is the identity of this team? Because it's the exact same question I get for Portland. And instead of realizing it's still a Damian Lillard team with some changes, it's like they can't wrap their head around this. With the Kings, is this a De'Aaron Fox team with a bunch of changes on it, or is this a fundamentally different team?
I think it's going to be a completely different team. I think the one thing is, we know vibes can be good vibes can be overrated in training camp, right? Like, good vibes doesn't equate to success. Bad vibes, as we're seeing around the league, that can lead to some chaos with teams. Talk about, with Westbrook and the Lakers, what's going on with Golden State, Boston, Phoenix, weird situations. I've been around this Kings team for a long time. It feels a little different. I think Mike Brown has really emphasized this like fun family atmosphere, the buy-in. They've been in the camp like way early, all through the summer, building relationships. And I think the vibes are real. It's not like a De'Aaron Fox team because they have Sabonis too. I think this team's going to go as far as like, can Fox play to the level that some think he can be? Can Sabonis be the guy that he has been? And now they surrounded them with some shooting. Like Kevin Huerter is a good shooter. Yeah. Malik Monk coming off your bench. He can get buckets, right? What can Davion Mitchell look like in year two? What Keegan Murray can do when he's not the focal point? Like now the pressure's not on him to lead a college team. He can kind of just fit in with this group. And they've kind of gone like, hey, we've got some high IQ guys. We've got guys who are ready to work hard. I think offensively, they're going to be really fun to watch. Defensively is the question. Like, can Brown devise a good team defensive philosophy that they're not a train wreck there like they've been since 2006? And that's the biggest question. I think that's going to where you put a lot of pressure on De'Aaron Fox. Like, yeah, this is year 6, man. Like, he understands the importance of it. Last year was awful for him and the team. He understands that, like, he's got to bring it. And there's no doubt you've seen the scoring ability. The guy's averaged 25 a game in the NBA, but can he at least be better defensively because he has that type of potential?
When you look at where the Kings are now versus what they've been for, 6-7 years, is there a fundamental difference? Does it feel like they're not the Kangs? Are they less Kangsy now?
I mean, I think so, but the one thing I always say is like it's easy to have these good vibes right now. The question is what's going to happen when inevitably during the middle of a season or you lose 3 in a row, 4 in a row. Are you pointing fingers? Are guys starting to complain about roles? Those are the things, right? Like last year going to the camp, Buddy Hield and Bagley thought they were going to be out. Then they're there. Bagley's like out of the rotation. His agent's ripping the Kings. Hield is not happy. It was bad vibes all the way around, and they didn't do enough to improve the roster. I mean, this has been a dramatic improvement. It seems like everyone likes each other. And I think the biggest thing that Mike Brown's done, even with his coaching staff, is it seems like they built like a level of trust and accountability that if these bad times end up happening, that they can get through it instead of the pointing of the fingers and the drama and the chaos. It's weird right now. I was talking to my co-host Morgan about this the other day. It's like all these weird vibes around the league right now. And for some reason, it's not in Sacramento. And that's weird because it seems like no matter what, every year there's some sort of drama in Sacramento. It's early, but it does feel different. But the West is stacked, I mean, I like, what's the ceiling for this group? I mean, I personally think they could be a team that gets right around 500, maybe a couple of games if everything goes right. But they're going to be a team fighting for the play-in.
This is something I've dealt with recently with the Blazers losing 21 of 23 last year and tanking out hard. I mean, they did it on purpose. If you extrapolate that over a season, that's a 6-win team. Like, let me put that in perspective for people that don't understand. Yeah. This is a 6-win team. This is the worst basketball you've ever seen. And when you think about that for a second, it's like, oh, that's what they did. Yeah, they lost 15 games by 15 or more. They got hammered. But Shaedon Sharpe was the piece they got out of that. And they got Jeremy Grant. And they did all these things. Now that they're kind of ramping back up and they look different, they've shuffled the deck, and more than shuffled the deck, they have made wholesale changes at places that matter. Now Victor Wembanyama comes along. Is there a faction? I mean, I know there is, but how loud is the noise and how much of a problem do you think it will be for a Kings team that looks to be on the rise in a period when this is really when you should be tanking? Is there a weird part of that where you're like, now?
Yeah, they've missed the playoffs for 16 years. It's the longest active playoff drought in American sports.
Yeah, the Mariners just got rid of theirs, and that put the Kings number 1.
It's the longest in NBA history. And I always like to put this in perspective for people because the people in Sacramento know this, but the Kings have been in Sacramento 37 years. They have 8 winning seasons. I mean, just think about that for a second. 8, and by the way, those 8 winning seasons were all consecutive from 98 to the 05-06 year. Rick Adelman.
Yeah.
Right?
The Adelman curse.
Yeah, that's it. In 37 years, they've made the playoffs 10 times. And so now you have this drought, and they've made so many mistakes along the way. They made a decision last year. We are trying to end this. What are we going to do? We're going to make a really risky trade right now and trade a promising young talent in Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis, and let's build around this and see what we can do and what's the ceiling. It's going to be something that we're going to be like judging for years to come because they could have gone the different route. They could have been like, you know what? Let's just blow this up this year. We'll keep Halliburton, get rid of everything else, Fox, Barnes, all the vets. Let's roll with Mitchell, Halliburton. We'll go the Blazers route, lose 15 of 17, get a great draft pick, and kind of rebuild this. But I think they're just caught in this tough spot because for your fan base, when you don't win for 16 years, it's tough to sell like, hey, we're going to be bad again, but trust me, this time it's going to be different. So they did not go that route. And for them, I don't know if it was a basketball gods thing or whatever, they were still able to move up and get the number 4 pick and get Keegan Murray. So yeah, there's a portion that you looked at Victor. I mean, who doesn't look at Victor right now and go, yeah, Wembenyama's out there. We need a tank to get him. The reality is it's not as easy as that anymore with the new lottery odds. Like, okay, so go ahead and tank. If you have the number 1 odds, it doesn't mean anything. I mean, when's the last time the team with the worst odds got the number 1 pick? It hasn't happened in this new lottery format. So it's tough. I think you just have to let it play out. But I get yes, if whoever lands Victor is changing their franchise for good. And would it be awesome for the Kings to land someone like that? Absolutely. But I think you just have to let it play out. This is the path they chose, and they're trying to win and be competitive now.
In that win and be competitive front, what is going to be different about this team so much so than even the last year's team when, Sabonis was there and they did some things better, but also things kind of didn't look great there either. What are the wholesale changes? I know, obviously, adding some additional shooting and Huerter, like spreading the floor, allowing Fox to get downhill. But it's always great to say that in theory. But what are the things you can point to and go, this is how this team wins 41 games and gets a play-in spot?
I think the one thing the Kings have lacked for so many years, I think the last time they had some sort of identity was that 2018-19 season when everyone thought they were going to be bad and they won 39 games, which I know that's still bad, but they were projected to be awful. Okay,
that's coin toss away from 500.
Well, and also that was you got to think that was year 2 of Fox, right? Like, oh my God. Their identity was, we are going to run. All the coaches coming into town were like, this is one of the fastest teams we've ever seen. Even off misses, they are push. They had an identity. They end up making a coaching change to go to Luke Walton. But there was no identity. And I don't think they made the appropriate moves. It's making the mistakes after mistake. And I know the Blazers over the years have handed out some poor contracts. You go, what the hell? But I'm sorry, when the Kings are handing Corey Joseph $13 million, when they're paying Dwayne Dedmon around the same, they're bringing Trevor Ariza in, for 15. These are major mistakes, right? You get cap space and you just throw them at guys that aren't going to actually improve your team and change your identity and all of that. I think this year, they have really made it a point we are going to change the roster, but it's also, we can't just be the team that just goes pick and roll and be boring. We have to have some movement. And when you have one of the best passing bigs in the NBA, and Domantas Sabonis, you got to have some movement. He is such a gifted passer. The one thing, and it's small sample size, the first preseason game against the Lakers, the movement's just there. It's getting Fox. Fox has never moved without the ball.
No.
Because he wasn't taught, right? De'Aaron Fox has always been the fastest guy out there. He can
ball in hand.
Yeah. He had to be taught a little bit. And now he's understanding the importance of the cut, right? It's move without the ball. You're such a threat. You just moving is such a good thing. So I just noticed, I was actually rewatching some of it today, and the movement off ball from guys has just been so much better. So I think they'll have an identity. Like, we're going to make quick decisions. We want to get into our offense by 19 seconds in the shot clock. Let's initiate it. We're going to get the ball up and go. We don't care who has it. And that's the one thing I noticed too, is like Sabonis gets a rebound, he's pushing it. Huerter gets it. Whoever has the ball, push. We're not searching. Let's go. Let's be decisive. Let's have good decisions. And their big message is, we don't care how we win or lose. It's not about winning or losing. It's about how we win, how we lose. We have to be competitive every single night. In that first game, somehow Mike Brown played all 20 players on the roster, and they were competitive. They played hard throughout.
That seems to be something that's kind of running through the NBA right now. There's a shift in focus, particularly as it pertains to coaching and even in front offices, is that the process matters. Process. It's what I keep trying to hammer home to people that are freaking out while the Blazers are playing in preseason right now. It's like, you've got 3 new starters. You've only have 6 entirely returning players from last year's roster. And you look at where things are right now. I don't care if somebody's not hitting shots. Are they getting to their spots? Yes. Is the process right? Okay. Move on to the next. Like, I'm not going to panic about anything until, end of November. That's when I'm going to start raising an eyebrow of, like, you could have bad nights. I mean, hell, the Trailblazers had a road home back-to-back in the preseason.
So weird.
Why?
Yeah. Well, the Kings they played their first preseason game Monday. They haven't had a game since Monday. Their second preseason game is against the Blazers tomorrow.
So when I was going through film and I was watching that, they haven't played since then.
Right.
My goodness.
So and I completely agree with what you said about preseason. It's about, hey, we've been going up against each other at practice. Let's try to implement this. Let's iron out the kinks a little bit. Let's get this going. I mean, the Kings were 4-0 in the preseason last year. It doesn't matter. The wins and losses don't matter. I remember back, I think it was 2 years ago, the Kings played the Blazers twice in the preseason, and Harry Giles crushed the Kings in both games. And the amount of people are like, I can't believe the Kings let Harry Giles go.
And then Harry didn't play pretty much the entire season.
I love Harry Giles. Greatest guy. I'm just like, guys, It's preseason. It's a little different. Don't rush your judgment. It's what you just said. It's like, all right, are you even on misses? Are you seeing guys get open looks? Are they getting the right opportunities? Is the offense functioning? Is the communication there? That's what it's about at this point. I think they're really, Mike Brown is trying to establish a culture in Sacramento. And I understand, by the way, that's so cliche, right? Like,
no, but it matters, because this is from the outside looking in. Fan bases, that fan base loves that team.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you what the hell that culture has been for 15 years.
It's been awful. It's been terrible. And mistakes from top down that have really hurt this team. This is the first time I can tell you that I'm like, they might have a little something here. And it doesn't mean I think they're going to, win 50. I'm not saying anything like that.
But something is better than the nothing that has been there.
They have a direction. We can debate whether they should have gone this direction. Like, what's the ceiling with it? Sure. That's a different conversation. This is the direction they chose. And I think they're putting together the right pieces around it to be a really competitive team in the West this year.
Which brings me to the next point here. Trailblazers and Kings are kind of picked in the same range, same area for a lot of the same reasons generally. From the outside looking in, where do you see this Portland team? What is it that you like or don't like about what they've done, or what are the questions that you have about this Portland team as Sacramento comes in here on Sunday for the preseason and then it opens up the season against them?
I just think, I was looking at the Vegas over-unders, a month ago, and I
took the over, just so we're clear.
I was so surprised at where Sacramento was compared to Portland, because I actually think these two teams are very close. I am interested to see what Dame looks like after pretty much a year off, right? And I think most people look at it, they give Portland an advantage here just because it's Dame. Yeah. I mean, what he's capable of. I love the Jeremy Grant pickup. That was a guy that I was looking at for Sacramento before the draft, and I'm like, that he should be a target.
Yeah,
the Blazers have been a joke defensively. I think that's the biggest thing that I look at now. I feel like they're going to make a step there. They've got guys that look like they're committed to that side. Jeremy Grant, to me, is criminally underrated. I really believe that. I think some people view him as, he just got numbers because of his time in Detroit. But forget Detroit for a second. He showed that he can score and do things. go back to Denver. When he's in the playoffs and he's got to defend LeBron, he's trying to defend AD. The guy can defend multiple positions, and he showed he's got a little bit of a bag. He doesn't have to be what he was in Denver, and he doesn't have to be what he was in Detroit. I think there's a middle ground there, and I think it's a talented player. So I like that pickup. I like Josh Hart. I'm interested to see how it comes together. And so I kind of view them in that similar range as the Kings. And I'm eager to see it all come together, because it's not like you got to see Dame with Anthony last year as he took that leap. Like, what's that look like? I like the squad. I think they can be very competitive.
As it pertains to Jeremy Grant, I call Portland his Goldilocks. It's his three bear situation, where you saw him probably not get enough offense in Denver. You probably saw him get too much offense in Detroit, and he's probably not quite the number 2 option, but the number 3 who every couple nights becomes the number 2 option. That feels like the sweet spot for him, with Dame and Ant being 1-2 pretty much every single night. Every now and then Grant can kind of step in. I feel like that's his spot. That's where he gets in and allows him to be happy, feel his offensive zen, so to speak, and still be the defensive guy that they hope he can be.
I agree 100%.
Looking at both this first preseason, I shouldn't say first preseason match, the preseason match between the Kings and the Blazers, and the first game of the regular season, what are the things that you were looking for going into those games? Obviously, preseason being different than the regular season. What are the markers? Because I have mine when I go into every game. Like, what are you looking at in those particular matchups?
Well, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but Kings' first preseason game, they played all 20.
Yeah.
And not just all 20 where they, at the end, the guys played 2 minutes. I think everyone played at least 7 minutes. I mean, pretty remarkable.
That's impressive.
Mike Brown says they're going to trim that down. Maybe at max play 15 in that preseason game. The starters are going to go into the second half, which they did not do against the Lakers. After having so much time in between games, I want to see how, and coaches believe practicing is the most important thing. The NBA teams don't get a lot of practice time during the season. Mike Brown was just saying the other day, he's like, I would love to have 30 practices before one game. That's how much I love practice and trying to tinker with things and get things perfected. So I'm just looking at, all right, what's this chemistry look like with this starting group if KZ's in the lineup for Sacramento? KZ Okpala, some fans may know him, brief stint in Miami. He was there, gets traded to OKC. They waived him. But Mike Brown loves the guy. I mean, Mike Brown knows him from the Nigerian national team. And at that time, he was like, I think he has defensive player of the year type potential in the NBA. He said that last year. And I'm like, wow, so he's really high on him.
And he's been around and coached defensive player of the year.
Yeah. And KZ is like, I'm eager to see what that looks like. But I'm also like, okay, but what does Keegan look like with that group? Because Brown said yesterday that it seems like Huerter is going to be the starting shooting guard, but the power forward spot, the 4 spot is still open. I think that's a KZ versus Keegan battle. It's going to be Keegan's job at some point this year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it may not be at the start of the year. And so I want to see how that functions. I want to see, we didn't see a lot of the starters together in that first game. So I want to see how that looks. As far as anything else, I don't know. It's preseason. It's kind of the stuff we hit on. Like, what's it look like? And I want to see what are these coaches going to hold back a little bit because they play and opening night? I don't know. And
that's the interesting thing is because Portland's trying to find their starting small forward. So they've started Justice Winslow. They've started Josh Hart. And Sunday they will start Nasir Little to see kind of what happens. They played Nasir Thursday night against Maccabi. He got quite a bit of run and kind of cleared his head. He looked flustered and rushed. And this is a guy who hasn't played basketball basically in 7 months because of the same core muscle surgery that Dame had. So looking at that in that matchup, how Nas reacts to being in the starting lineup and being effective against a Kings team, it's going to be game and athletic and rested and ready to go. I have no questions. In case you're wondering, Damian Lillard looks like old Damian Lillard.
Man,
the burst that wasn't there for the core muscle injury is back. Monday night he took up a little swing pass out to the wing. Batum and Kawhi Leonard closed out on him. He turned the corner, put one hand down at full speed, got bumped and one. And it was like, there it is. Haven't seen that in a while. So I'm not worried about that.
No, I wouldn't be either. And Dame, but before I just wipe away last season because of what he was dealing with. Got
100%.
That slow start. Before that, I mean, the ultimate Kings killer. How many times Dame has come into Sacramento? Oh, here's a 50-point game. Mm-hmm. He's one of my favorite players in the league. And I mean, I just think back to the draft when how many times I've talked to people who were with the Kings then that like, yeah, he was the guy we were drafting. That was going to be the guy. He had the best pre-draft workout. It was incredible. Like they were running him through some sort of situation on the court. He was doing a solo workout, and his first question was like, "Well, how much time's on the clock?" Because that's going to dictate what he does out there. This is a guy from Weber State. I don't know. That was the guy they were going to take,
and then
Thomas Robinson dropped. I mean, and you just think these are the mistakes we talk about with the Kings over the years, where you're just like, these are critical misses. I mean, even CJ McCollum, who thought he was going to get drafted by the Sacramento Kings.
He was told.
Yes.
He was getting drafted by the Sacramento Kings, which is why if you look at CJ's numbers in his career against Sacramento, he holds that one personally.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of guys throughout the league. Klay Thompson, the same thing. He's like, yeah, they didn't draft me. I still want to go. And, so there's a lot of guys around the NBA who are like, yeah, I thought I was going there. They passed up on me and look what I've done. But no, I'm eager. Dame being back is so good for basketball. It's good. And I just vibe with the Portland fans because I think Sacramento and Portland kind of similar.
There's some similarities, strong similarities for sure.
The fan bases are super engaged into the product. So
they're one team towns, all due respect to the MLS and NWSL here in Portland. But as far as the Big Four goes, they're one team towns. And they rally around them in a way that one team towns do.
And be fun this year because I think these two teams are going to be battling it out. Like it's going to be the games between these two teams are going to be fascinating to watch.
It's so weird because no matter how futile the Kings have been or how good the Blazers have been, they have played each other to some of the most insane games over the last 10, 12 years. Yeah. Whether it's, I think DeMarcus had one like 40-10, 8-5 game. Nurkic had his 20-point 5x5. Myers Leonard and DeMarcus getting in near fist fights on a regular basis and somehow turning those games into watchable contests. The weirdest things. And I fully expect that to continue. But I will say, I don't think, we talked about this before we went live, I will say, I don't think that the Kings are going to come in here and punch this Blazers team in the face because the vibes aren't nearly as bad as they were. And the good thing is, because what was that, like a 90-120 game? Something along those lines.
It was one of those memories where you go, oh, man, Kings could be different this year. And, then it was the same old stuff. So it was
just the Blazers were just that broken out of the gate.
And honestly, what was so weird about it, I was trying to look that up as we were talking. The Kings' record in Portland is awful. It is one of the worst.
It's one of the worst places for any team to play. Portland has one of the best home records in the NBA.
Even when the Kings were good, they could never win there. It's just wild. But
Kobe hated coming here. Yeah, he talked about it every single time. He's like, I hate coming here. He goes, not only is it rainy, not only is it this. He's like, we never win here.
Yeah,
him and Phil Jackson both were just like, I hate coming here.
It's a tough place to play. It is. It really is.
The one reason everybody loves coming here is if you're a Nike guy, you're going out to the Nike store.
Yeah,
that's about it. So, all right, we'll get you out of here, man. Thank you for hopping on. You can find him at Deuce Mason on Twitter, Deuce and Mo podcast. Go check it out. Honestly, him and Morgan do a fantastic job. I've been following these guys for a long time. That's why I wanted to bring them on because they do such a great job with the Kings. And Portland, it feels like we play the Kings once every couple of weeks. So if you want to kind of figure out what's going on, go check them out there. Deuce, thank you so much, man. Go enjoy the rest of your weekend, and hopefully we'll tack back in probably sometime mid-season before we play each other 5 more times somehow.
Yeah, and maybe if we get lucky in Sacramento, we get like a play-in opportunity. That'd be fun.
You know what? I don't want to see this team in the play-in, but
see, and in Sacramento, we're like, just get to the play-in. we'll throw a damn parade downtown Sacramento. We'll go all across.
You know what? I'm not going to get you out of here on that. Do you think if they get to the play-in, it turns into a Minnesota situation? Somebody standing on top of a scorebox, just absolutely losing their minds.
if the Kings made the play-in and then got into the actual playoffs,
Is there a championship parade?
it would be insane. And I think there would be the players, but the fan, you would be like, wait, did they think they won a championship? But I'm telling you, I'd probably tear up a little bit going, I can't believe this. It's been 16 years. I was at the last playoff game. It was game 6 against the Spurs. I was a senior in high school. I got a ticket, sit up in the upper level, and that time you're not thinking, I'm never going to be in a playoff game in 6. We'll be back at some point. But you knew at that moment, it was like, Rick Adelman's going to be gone. And since then, it hasn't been the same. Fast forward, I'm 34 years old. Okay, so let's get some playoff basketball.
Listen, I get it. I'm a Cardinals fan, so I had a rough loss last night. But Mariners fans in Seattle, 21 years. One of our afternoon hosts, his brother, is the biggest Mariners fan on the face of the planet. He was bunkering himself in his home yesterday to take on with his sons, who were, I believe, 14 and 16, who have never seen his team in the playoffs.
And you know what's crazy about that? I know they've never made the playoffs, but they did have some winning seasons.
Well, I mean,
they missed. The Kings have been such a the peak in 16 years was 39 wins. It's just crazy.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And listen, I do hope the Kings do get there. Like I genuinely do. I don't like to see a fan base browbeaten like this. It is a bummer. Yeah. So hopefully when we talk back again soon, it'll be because the Kings made a play-in or made the playoffs, and somehow the Kings and Blazers are matching each other up in there. Well, go enjoy the rest of your weekend, man. We'll touch back soon. Hopefully we can talk before game 1 of the regular season and see where kind of things land up.
All right, man. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, anytime, brother. You take care.
All right.